They'd stopped calling for help. The SEAL team was trapped low on ammo, pressed against a jagged cliff inside a valley where air support simply didn't exist. Not because it wasn't authorized, but because no sane pilot would fly through that death zone twice. This was the same canyon that had already swallowed missions whole. No backup plan, no drones, no extraction scheduled. Just silence until someone at the forward outpost heard it. A sound low and metallic, rising fast. Not the sound of rescue, the sound of vengeance tearing over the ridge like thunder breaking from a wounded sky. Someone whispered, half in disbelief, "She's back." Every SEAL on the ground lifted their eyes, because they remembered what happened last time that roar filled the canyon. The message was never supposed to get through. A weak, broken signal slipped from a crumbling stone outpost near the Afghan border. Static. Then fragments of a voice, "Bravo 9, contact north and east, 2 men down, requesting," then silence. At forward post, 86 kilometers away, the comms officer froze. He recognized the impossible. That signal came from Sector 7C. No one spoke. No one had to. Sector 7C didn't exist on any official maps anymore. The last time they sent rescue there, they barely escaped alive, losing drones at Kiowa and nearly an entire team. Steep ridges, unpredictable winds, RPG crews hidden on every slope. No signal, no GPS, no recovery path. They called it the Boneyard. Command bent over the map. No aircraft in theater can survive that corridor. It's suicide. And yet if they waited until nightfall, the SEALs wouldn't survive. They were already bleeding out. The tent fell silent until the colonel asked one question. "Do we have anyone who's flown that valley before?" At first, silence. Then a young officer spoke without meaning to. "There's one." Every head turned. "She flew it 2 years ago. Solo. Under 70 feet. They said it couldn't be done." The colonel's voice tightened. "What's her status?" The answer came reluctantly. "Grounded. After her last canyon run." The colonel didn't hesitate. "Where is she now?" Elaine Kit sat on the edge of a rusted bench watching mechanics tinker with an idle Warthog engine in Hangar 4. Her name was still on the roster, but her access codes were revoked. After her last canyon run, when she barely dragged a battered A-10 back with 12 SEALs alive, they grounded her. No protests, no complaints. She just waited. Until today. The call hadn't come to her directly, but close enough. A trusted mechanic gave her a single nod. No orders, no explanation. Just 2 words, Sector 7C. That was all she needed. Elaine rose without hesitation. She didn't care who was trapped down there. If a call had come from the Boneyard, things were already worse than anyone dared admit. Her old A-10 call sign, Fury 2, sat scarred and silent under the overhang. One panel still unpainted from the last mission. Not cleared for flight, not touched in weeks. It didn't matter. The crew chief stepped aside as she approached. They'd seen what she could do in that cockpit. If she was walking toward it now, something was about to happen. She climbed in like she was coming home. Half the avionics dead. Fuel at 78%. Hydraulics rough, but workable. It wouldn't fly well. It wouldn't fly pretty. But it would fly. Her voice crackled into the tower. "This is Fury 2, requesting immediate takeoff. Emergency response." The tower stammered back. "Fury 2. You're not scheduled. Who is this?" She didn't answer. She just throttled up, roaring down the runway before anyone could stop her. On the radar, her blip vanished as she dropped below detection range. The commander watching whispered, "She's airborne, and if the SEALs are still alive, they might just stay that way." The canyon greeted her with silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind pilots dread the silence of traps waiting in the rocks. Major Elaine Kit adjusted the trim by hand. Fury 2's controls were heavier than she remembered, stiff pedals, sluggish hydraulics. But she didn't need software. She flew with instinct, with memory. Ahead lay the narrowest stretch of the route, barely 300 feet wide, winds brutal enough to rip a C-130 off course. To survive, she had to skim through at just the right angle, low enough to dodge heat seekers, close enough that her wingtips nearly kissed the canyon walls. She dropped altitude 210 feet, 190, 160. Proximity alarms screamed. She shut them off. Then she saw movement on the ridge, shadows ducking behind stone. heat signatures clustering on her HUD. The kill box had closed and she hadn't even reached the SEALs yet. Her comms crackled faintly. Stormcaller. God, it's you. We thought, yeah, she cut them off. So did they. On the ground, Bravo 9 huddled in a crumbling outpost. A bleeding team sandbags for walls, scopes duct taped to shattered tripods. One SEAL spotted her first, a blur of gray wings, screaming over the rocks. She's here! The A-10 didn't soar. It dived. The earth shook under its presence. Elaine locked onto the ridge where enemy signatures clustered. She squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 Avenger roared to life, spitting thunder that tore the cliffside apart. Dust erupted, figures scattered, one RPG team erased in seconds. Contact left eliminated. She radioed calmly. Moving to intercept East Group. She banked hard, skimming so close the valley wall stripped dry leaves off her wingtip. Another group of fighters dashed between boulders. She didn't hesitate. Manual aim. No lock-on. Just instinct. The Avenger barked again. Stone shattered. Shadows dissolved in fire and dust. Inside the cockpit, lights flickered. Fuel slipping. Stabilizers straining. Elaine whispered to her aircraft. Not yet. You hold for me, old girl. Back at base, the tent stood silent, listening only to her voice, each word cutting through, static like a lifeline. And on the ground for the first time that day, the SEALs had hope. At 200 feet, there's no margin for error. Every vibration could mean structural failure. Every second stretched Fury 2 closer to breaking. Her stabilizer warning blinked out completely. One throttle fought her grip. She could feel the strain in the bones of the aircraft, but she wasn't leaving. Down below, the SEALs were dragging a wounded teammate, one leg gone, toward a flat stretch marked as Point Echo, their only chance for extraction. Exposed ground. No cover. Elaine banked again, sweeping so low her wingtip missed the canyon wall by less than 2 meters. Not a stunt. Survival. The lower she flew, the harder it was for enemy missiles to lock. Her comms hissed, Stormcaller, be advised, extraction zone compromised. Do not engage. Return to base immediately. Her lips twitched. I'm already in the fight. Review me later. The tent back at command split in two, regulation versus survival. She's violating orders. She's saving lives. The colonel's voice cut through it all. We left them for dead. She didn't. Keep her frequency clear. Elaine lined up another run. The eastern ridge came alive, 7 fighters, 1 heavy weapon team, and a mobile jammer pulsing interference through the canyon. No wonder recon had failed. This wasn't oversight. It was a setup. Her HUD flickered. Targeting systems dead. Flare countermeasures offline. She steadied her breath, gripped the trigger, and let instinct guide her. The Avenger roared again. Rock disintegrated. Enemy positions collapsed. Fighters scattered like dust in the storm. The SEAL lead's voice finally broke through, steadier now. Stormcaller, we're moving. 3 mics to the LZ. You cleared us a path. Elaine pulled Fury 2 around, whispering to the battered machine as alarm screamed, not yet. Hold just a little longer. Above the canyon, her engines howled defiance. And on the ground, the SEALs pushed forward because they knew she wasn't leaving them. Fury 2 screamed over the valley, engines running hot, fuel dropping below 40%. Her flare system was gone. If a missile locked on, she had nothing but her wits. Then it happened. An infrared flash lit the sky. A launch from the west slope. Most pilots would dive, panic evade wildly. Elaine did the opposite. She rolled into a tight banking spiral, dragging the missile along the canyon wall. The curve of the rock broke its lock. It detonated 50 meters behind her, shockwave, slamming her fuselage. One engine sputtered. She coaxed it, whispered through gritted teeth, "Come on, old girl. Stay with me." Still flying, still in the fight. On the ground, the SEALs burst onto the flat zone. Echo to command, we are at the LZ. Request immediate extraction, 2 Chinooks inbound. 3 minutes out. Elaine circled above, scanning every slope, daring anything to show itself. That's when she saw it, 3 faint thermal blips on the southern ridge. Too far to hit the SEALs directly. But they weren't aiming at the men. They were aiming at the birds. She didn't wait for permission. Didn't even call it in. She dove. The Avenger cannon tore into the ridge, scattering fighters like leaves. but one managed to fire another streak of light, this time aimed at the second Chinook. Elaine saw it. She had seconds. No flares. No countermeasures. Only one option: draw it. She slammed the throttle to max, cutting straight into the missile's path. The lock shifted. It chased her. Telemetry at command lit red. She's dragging it. She can't outrun it. But outrunning wasn't her plan. Outthinking was. She dropped lower until stone scraped her belly. At the last instant, she pulled vertical Fury 2, clawing skyward. The missile didn't make it. It slammed into the canyon wall, exploding in a thunderous blast that shook the earth. Fury 2 burst through the debris, plume coughing, smoke but alive. Elaine said nothing. She didn't cheer. She just turned back toward the LZ. By then, the Chinooks were lifting off dust storms, swirling as the SEALs scrambled aboard. Extraction complete. And above it all, Fury 2 circled like a storm that refused to die, making sure the sky stayed clean until the last bird was gone. The landing was brutal. Fury 2's front strut buckled on touchdown, groaning under the weight of a flight profile no machine was meant to endure twice. The Warthog bounced once, then rolled to a halt at the far end of the field. Elaine cut the engines before the ladder was even in place. She climbed down in silence, flight suit streaked with oil and sweat. Ground crews rushed forward, some tried to speak, most just stared. She ignored them all and kept walking. At the edge of the hangar, a blacked-out SUV waited. Two men in plain uniforms, no insignia, no names. Major Kit. "You'll need to come with us," she asked flatly. "Am I being charged?" "No, ma'am." "Then what is this command review?" That phrase meant many things, none of them good. They didn't take her to a standard debriefing room. They drove past it through triple security gates, stopping at a windowless building she'd only seen from a distance, the kind pilots were told never to ask about. Inside, one bare table, two chairs, a single folder. The man waiting was older, composed, his stillness unnerving. He didn't rise when she entered. He only gestured for her to sit. Then he opened the folder without looking down. "You violated a no-fly directive. Entered a dead zone without clearance. Engaged without authorization. Commandeered an aircraft not cleared for flight." He turned a page. "And you saved 6 lives. Eliminated 13 hostile combatants. Disrupted a supply chain. Prevented the destruction of 2 high-value aircraft." Elaine said nothing. He finally looked up, expression unreadable. "You don't seem concerned." She met his gaze. "I've already had the worst day of my life." This wasn't it. For the first time, he almost smiled. Then he slid a new folder across the table, unmarked black. Inside, a grainy infrared photo. It showed her A-10 mid-dive. But what mattered wasn't the plane. It was the figure standing on the ridge behind her. Not fleeing, not fighting, just watching. Elaine frowned. "That's not one of ours." "No, and we've seen them before. Always during your flights. You think they're tracking me?" "No, testing you." He stood, closing his case. "You're being reassigned, Major." To where she asked. He didn't answer. He simply slid a new patch across the table. Black fabric, no unit name. Only a single call sign, Stormcaller. 2 weeks later, the world had already moved on. News cycles barely whispered about the canyon rescue. No names, no confirmations, just leaked footage and rumors. Officially, Major Elaine Kit no longer existed. Her records were pulled from registry, missions labeled under review, her name erased from active files as if she'd never flown. But she was still flying, now based at a remote facility with no runway markings, no standard towers, hangars that housed aircraft that officially didn't exist, personnel with no insignia, faces that never spoke more than necessary. Every time she crossed the concrete toward Fury 2, now patched, repainted, and quietly upgraded, she felt eyes on her. Not suspicious, not hostile, just watching, studying. Her new commanding officer never introduced himself. He simply handed her sealed mission folders and disappeared. The files weren't like before. No maps, no intel packets, only grainy satellite photos. Always the same thing, a ridge, a canyon, and a lone figure. Standing, watching. Elaine never asked who authorized these missions. She already knew. She suited up quietly, methodically. The tech crew prepped Fury 2 in silence. They knew better than to ask. And when she climbed into the cockpit, she noticed something new painted beneath the canopy. Not a number, not a squadron. Just a single word: Stormcaller. For the first time in weeks, Elaine smiled faintly. The engines roared to life, smoother now, newly upgraded proof that someone somewhere wanted her in the air. The controller's voice crackled in her headset. Stormcaller, you are clear for departure. No ceiling. Flight path open. Elaine froze for a second. No ceiling negative. You're flying blind. She flicked the comms off. If they were watching, so be it. But from now on, she would fly like she was the one watching. Fury 2 lifted slicing upward into open sky. She didn't look back. She never did. Ahead, another canyon loomed. And somewhere inside, she knew the figure would be waiting again, patient, deliberate, as if testing the sky itself. But this time, Elaine wasn't just a soldier in a war. She was the warning before it began. And above the ridges, Stormcaller roared. The patch lay heavy in her palm. Black cloth stitched with a single word. Stormcaller. Elaine turned it over once, then slid it into her pocket without a word. Outwardly calm. Inwardly, she wasn't so sure. She didn't fear combat. She never had. What gnawed at her now wasn't the enemy outside, it was the silence inside. The kind that crept in when the adrenaline wore off and the noise of battle faded. When the hangar lights dimmed and she was alone with her thoughts, she would see them again. Faces of men she hadn't saved, aircraft she hadn't brought home. The ghosts of missions where she'd survived but others hadn't. People called her fearless. They were wrong. Elaine knew fear too well. She just flew straight through it. Her mind drifted back to her first run through the boneyard 2 years earlier. She remembered the sudden gust that slammed her aircraft sideways, the stall, warnings screaming in her ears. For a moment, she had been certain that was it. Her hands had trembled on the stick. She hadn't wanted to die there, not in that forgotten canyon. But then she remembered something her first instructor had once told her. The machine is only as brave as the pilot. If you flinch, it will fail. If you hold it, will fight. And she had held. Somehow the aircraft had clawed out of that death trap. And because of that, 12 SEALs went home that night. She lived with the weight of those 12 souls. But she also carried the weight of every mission where she'd come home alone. It was the paradox of her life, called reckless, by her superiors, called savior by the men on the ground. Heroism and insubordination braided together. Now, staring at the word Stormcaller, Elaine realized what unsettled her most. It wasn't the missions she had flown. It was the ones still waiting for her. Because if they kept sending her into the teeth of death, it meant the storm itself wasn't over. It was only beginning. Days later, the survivors of Bravo 9 sat in silence at a debriefing table. Not one of them could meet the other's eyes for long. The kind of silence that isn't peace, but the exhaustion of men who had already said their goodbyes once. Corporal Hayes, his leg bound in fresh bandages, the stump where his knee used to be hidden beneath the table, broke it first. She wasn't supposed to come. His voice was hoarse, bitter, and grateful all at once. Nobody was. We were dead. I'd already made my peace. Another SEAL, eyes hollow, shook his head. I heard it first. That roar. Thought I was losing it. Thought I was hallucinating before the end. No, whispered their team leader, his hands folded tight. You weren't. She came back. And when she did, the canyon changed. They remembered the way the ground had shaken under Fury 2's first pass. The way the Avenger cannon didn't sound like a weapon, but like some unearthly judgment echoing through the valley. One of them admitted through clenched teeth, I cried. I'll say it. When I saw her dive, when I realized it wasn't over, I cried. And none of the others laughed. Because they had all felt it, the sudden, impossible rush of hope. For soldiers pinned under impossible odds, hope can feel like madness. But when Elaine's Warthog screamed through the sky, hope became a weapon. Later, when they were evacuated to the field hospital, whispers spread among other units. The pilot who came back, the one who flew the boneyard, the Stormcaller, they spoke her name quietly, almost reverently. Because in war, legends don't need medals. They just need to be true once. And every man in Bravo 9 knew the truth. They were breathing because of her. Days later, the survivors of Bravo 9 sat in silence at a debriefing table. Not one of them could meet the other's eyes for long. The kind of silence that isn't peace, but the exhaustion of men who had already said their goodbyes once. Corporal Hayes, his leg bound in fresh bandages, the stump where his knee used to be hidden beneath the table, broke it first. "She wasn't supposed to come." His voice was hoarse, bitter, and grateful all at once. Nobody was. We were dead. I'd already made my peace. Another SEAL eyes hollow shook his head. I heard it first. That roar. Thought I was losing it. Thought I was hallucinating before the end. No, whispered their team leader, his hands folded tight. You weren't. She came back. And when she did, the canyon changed. They remembered the way the ground had shaken under Fury 2's first pass. The way the Avenger cannon didn't sound like a weapon, but like some unearthly judgment echoing through the valley. One of them admitted through clenched teeth, I cried. I'll say it. When I saw her dive, when I realized it wasn't over, I cried. And none of the others laughed. Because they had all felt it, the sudden, impossible rush of hope. For soldiers pinned under impossible odds, hope can feel like madness. But when Elaine's Warthog screamed through the sky, hope became a weapon. Later, when they were evacuated to the field hospital, whispers spread among other units. The pilot who came back. The one who flew the boneyard. The Stormcaller. They spoke her name quietly, almost reverently. Because in war, legends don't need medals. They just need to be true once. And every man in Bravo 9 knew the truth. They were breathing because of her. Legends don't need parades. They grow in the quiet corners, in whispered conversations, in the half-remembered stories soldiers tell when the lights go out. So it was with Elaine Kit. Her name had been erased from records, her missions flagged as in review. Officially, she no longer flew. And yet across bases and barracks, her story flew faster than any aircraft. The pilot who returned to the boneyard, the one who dragged a missile into the canyon wall, Stormcaller. In the chow hall, young aviators lowered their voices when her name came up. To speak it too loud felt dangerous, almost disrespectful, as if summoning something bigger than orders. Ground units told it differently. To them, she wasn't a call sign or a rumor. She was the low thunder that rolled in when hope was gone. They described her not as a pilot, but as a force part woman, part storm, part vengeance. Elaine knew. Even tucked away in her nameless facility, she caught fragments of it in the glances from technicians and the slight nods from men who loaded her cannon. They knew who she was, even if they never said it, but she carried it differently. Where others saw legend, she saw burden. Because for every life saved, she remembered the ones who hadn't made it. For every victory, the silence of those who never returned. And now being erased from the books meant no one would ever understand the weight of those ghosts but her. That was the paradox. She was both myth and absence, revered but invisible. And maybe that was what Command wanted, a Stormcaller who lived only as a shadow, a weapon without a name.